My mother-in-law tried to take my baby, not kidnapping, not something I could report to police. She did it legally. Filed papers. Hired lawyers. Told a judge I was dangerous and unfit and that my 6-week-old daughter would be safer in her custody than mine, and she almost won. I need you to understand what she used against me. Postpartum depression. 6 weeks after giving birth to my daughter Maya, I was struggling. Not with loving her. Not with wanting her. But with the chemical imbalance that happens to 1 in 7 mothers and feels like drowning while everyone around you insists you're fine. I'd told my husband Marcus. Told my doctor. Started medication. Was doing everything right, but I'd also told my mother-in-law, Diane, during one vulnerable phone call when she'd asked how I was doing. I'd been honest, said I was having dark thoughts. That sometimes I felt overwhelmed. That I was getting help. She said she understood. Said she'd had similar struggles after Marcus was born. Said I was brave for getting treatment. 2 weeks later, a sheriff knocked on my door at 7 a.m. with court papers. Emergency petition for temporary custody, he said, handing me the envelope. You have a hearing tomorrow at 9 a.m. Inside were 6 pages of lies written on official letterhead by a lawyer I'd never met, signed by a woman I'd trusted with my vulnerability. Diane claimed I'd told her I wanted to hurt my baby. That I'd been neglectful. That I'd left Maya alone and crying for hours. That I'd refused medical care. That I was a danger to myself and others. None of it was true, but it was written in legal language on official paper filed with a family court judge who didn't know me, didn't know her, just saw postpartum depression and concerns for infant safety and scheduled an emergency hearing. 24 hours. That's how much time I had to find a lawyer, gather evidence, and prove I wasn't the monster my mother-in-law claimed I was. I called Marcus at work. He didn't answer. I called again. Again. Finally he picked up. Did you know about this? I asked. Silence. Marcus. Did you know your mother was filing for custody? She's worried, he said. Voice quiet. Careful. She thinks maybe Maya should stay with her temporarily. Just until I'm what? Fixed? More silence. You're taking her side, I said. I'm not taking sides, I'm thinking about what's best for Maya. He'd already decided. His mother had convinced him. Not through evidence. Not through facts. Just through the same narrative she'd written in those legal papers. Depressed mother equals dangerous mother equals baby isn't safe. The hearing was a nightmare. I sat at a table with a court-appointed lawyer I'd met 30 minutes earlier. Diane sat across with her attorney, a man in a $5,000 suit who specialized in family law and had probably done this 100 times. The judge asked Diane's lawyer to present his case. He stood. Adjusted his glasses. Spoke in the calm, reasonable tone of someone stating obvious facts. Your Honor, Mrs. Whitmore is experiencing severe postpartum depression. She has expressed thoughts of harming her infant daughter. She has been unable to care for the child adequately. Mrs. Diane Whitmore, the child's grandmother, is petitioning for temporary custody to ensure the child's safety while the mother receives appropriate mental health treatment. Every word was a distortion. Thoughts of harming meant I'd told Diane I sometimes felt overwhelmed and scared I might drop Maya. Unable to care adequately meant I'd mentioned Maya had been crying a lot and I didn't always know why. Appropriate treatment implied I wasn't already in treatment. My lawyer, a tired-looking woman named Jennifer who I'd never see again after this hearing, tried to counter. Your Honor, Ms. Carter is already under medical care. Her doctor has confirmed she's following treatment protocols. There's no evidence of neglect or danger. This petition appears to be, does your client have documentation of her treatment? The judge interrupted. We can obtain, does she have it now? No, Your Honor, we were only notified, then I'm granting temporary custody to the grandmother pending a full hearing in 2 weeks. The mother will have supervised visitation 3 times weekly, 2 hours per session. Next case. Gavel. Done. My daughter was legally taken from me in 6 minutes. I walked out of that courthouse at 10:47 a.m. My breasts were leaking milk. My daughter was in a car seat being buckled in by a woman who'd weaponized my vulnerability to take her, and Marcus? He stood next to his mother, not next to me. The next 6 weeks were the worst of my life. Worse than postpartum depression. Worse than anything I'd experienced before or since I was allowed to see my daughter 3 times a week for 2 hours. At Diane's house. With a court-appointed supervisor watching every interaction to make sure I didn't endanger the baby I'd carried for 9 months and given birth to 8 weeks earlier, Diane would answer the door with Maya in her arms. Every time. Never let me be the first to hold her when I arrived. She just ate, Diane would say. Or, she just went down for a nap when it was literally my visitation time and Maya was supposed to be awake. The supervisor, a different person each time, strangers paid by the state to watch me mother my own child, would sit in the corner with a clipboard writing notes about everything I did. I picked Maya up too quickly. Mother appears anxious. I held her too long. Mother seems reluctant to put child down. I cried when I had to leave. Mother displays emotional instability. Every natural reaction to the trauma of having my baby taken was documented as evidence that I shouldn't have her back. The full custody hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks after the emergency order. My lawyer, a real one this time, paid for by maxing out credit cards, told me we had a good case. You're in treatment. You have documentation from your doctor. There's no evidence of actual neglect or harm. The grandmother's petition is based on speculation and distorted statements. Judge will likely restore custody with minimal restrictions. She was wrong, because what we didn't know was that Diane had spent those 6 weeks building a case. She'd taken photos of Maya during my visitation sessions, photos where Maya was crying. Normal baby crying. But presented to the court as child in distress during mother's visits. She'd gotten statements from her friends saying they'd heard me say concerning things about motherhood. Things I'd never said to them because I'd never met them. She'd even gotten Marcus to submit a statement saying he shared his mother's concerns about his wife's ability to safely care for their daughter. My own husband, the man who'd stood next to me at our wedding. Who'd held my hand during labor. Who'd promised to love me in sickness and in health. He testified against me. The judge ruled that custody would remain with Diane for another 90 days while I underwent comprehensive psychiatric evaluation and parenting skills assessment. 90 more days of supervised visitation. 90 more days of my daughter being raised by a woman who'd lied to take her. 90 more days of my husband living with his mother instead of with me. I left that courthouse understanding something fundamental. The legal system wasn't designed to protect mothers. It was designed to protect people who could afford better lawyers and who knew how to manipulate narratives. Diane had both, but I had something she didn't account for: time. And rage. And the absolute refusal to let a woman who'd weaponized my mental health crisis get away with trying to steal my child. I passed the psychiatric evaluation. Perfect mental health. No evidence of danger to self or others. Postpartum depression well managed with medication and therapy. I passed the parenting assessment. Demonstrates appropriate bonding behaviors, competent caretaking skills, and genuine concern for child's welfare. After 90 days, custody was restored to me with one condition: Marcus and I had to complete couples counseling. I got my daughter back, but I didn't forget what Diane had done. Or what she'd tried to do. Or that she'd faced 0 consequences for filing false claims that traumatized both me and Maya during those critical first months of bonding. The legal system said the case was closed. I disagreed. I didn't react immediately. Didn't confront Diane. Didn't cut contact the way my therapist suggested. Instead, I did something Diane never expected. I agreed to regular visits with Grandma. For Maya's sake, I told Marcus. She should know her grandmother. He was relieved. Thought I was being mature, moving past it. I wasn't. Every visit, I documented everything. Every boundary Diane crossed. Every undermining comment. Every time she ignored my parenting decisions. Every moment she acted like Maya was hers, not mine. She'd show up unannounced. I was just in the neighborhood. She'd contradict my rules. One cookie won't hurt her. You're being too strict. She'd make passive-aggressive comments. I hope you're taking your medication. She'd tell people we met in public. I practically raised Maya during her first months. Her mother was unwell. Every incident documented. Timestamped. Saved. Marcus saw it as his mother being involved and me being oversensitive. I saw it as a woman who hadn't gotten what she wanted, full custody, settling for undermining me at every opportunity, and I knew that if I reacted emotionally, if I cut contact, if I did what any normal person would do when someone tried to steal their baby, I'd be proving her narrative, unstable mother, overreacting, keeping child from loving grandmother. So I played the long game. 2 years, I documented for 2 full years. In that time, I completed therapy. Got promoted at work. Became the picture of stability that Diane had claimed I'd never be. Meanwhile, she escalated. Started telling Marcus that Maya called her mama when I wasn't around. Suggested Maya should spend weekends at her house to give you a break. Bought a second car seat and kept it in her car just in case. She was still trying to take my daughter, just slowly. Systematically. Through normalization. Grandparents raising grandchildren is becoming common, she said once during Sunday dinner. Sometimes mothers just need more support than they realize. I smiled. Said nothing. And added that comment to my documentation file. By the time Maya turned 2, I had 127 documented incidents. Boundary violations. Undermining behaviors. Statements to others questioning my fitness as a mother. And multiple attempts to establish herself as primary caretaker. I also had something else, Marcus finally seeing it. It happened at Maya's second birthday party. Diane had shown up early, uninvited to the setup, and rearranged everything I'd planned, changed the table settings. Moved the cake. Told guests arriving that I'm co-hosting, since I helped raise Maya. Marcus heard that. Saw his mother taking credit for raising a child she'd only gotten through lies and legal manipulation. And something shifted that night. After everyone left, he said, "My mom is crossing lines." "She's been crossing lines for 2 years, I said. "Why didn't you tell me?" I showed him the documentation. Every incident. Every comment. Every boundary violation. 2 years of evidence that his mother hadn't stopped trying to take Maya. She'd just changed tactics. He read it all. And for the first time since those court papers were served, he was fully on my side. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want to make sure she never tries to take our daughter again." Step 1, restraining order. I filed for a protective order based on harassment and continued attempts to undermine my parental authority. I included the 2 years of documentation. Every text. Every email. Every witnessed comment. Every boundary violation. Diane's lawyer argued it was normal grandparent behavior and I was overreacting due to unresolved issues from the custody case. The judge read the documentation. All 127 incidents. 2 years of systematic boundary violations from a woman who'd already used the legal system once to try to take this child. The restraining order was granted. Diane was prohibited from unsupervised contact with Maya and from coming within 100 yards of our home. But I wasn't done. Step 2, termination of grandparent visitation rights. Most people don't know that grandparents can petition for court-ordered visitation rights. It's rare. Usually only granted when the grandparent has been a primary caretaker or when there's evidence that lack of contact would harm the child. Diane had been researching it. I found the Google searches on Marcus's laptop when I was looking for a recipe. Can grandparents sue for visitation rights? Oregon? How to get court-ordered grandparent access. She was planning to file. To use the courts again to force access to Maya. So I filed first. I petitioned to have all grandparent visitation rights permanently terminated based on the previous custody attempt and current pattern of harassment. I included everything: the original false claims, the 2 years of documented boundary violations, the restraining order, and evidence of her researching how to force visitation through the courts. The hearing was different this time. I had a lawyer who knew what she was doing. I had documentation. And I had Marcus sitting next to me, not next to his mother. Diane's lawyer argued that grandparents have rights. That Maya would be harmed by losing contact with her grandmother. That I was being vindictive. My lawyer responded, "Mrs. Whitmore isn't a grandmother exercising rights. She's a woman who filed false claims to steal an infant from a vulnerable mother, and who has spent 2 years systematically attempting to undermine that mother's parental authority. The question isn't whether the child will be harmed by lack of contact. The question is whether the child is safer with someone who's willing to weaponize the legal system to take her away from her mother. The judge ruled in my favor. All grandparent visitation rights terminated permanently. Diane would have no legal right to see Maya. Ever. Unless I chose to allow it, and I wouldn't, because here's what Diane didn't understand when she filed that first custody petition. She gambled that I'd be too broken, too vulnerable, too defeated to fight back. She thought postpartum depression made me weak. She was wrong. It made me careful, strategic. Willing to wait 2 years to make sure that when consequences came, they'd be permanent. After the hearing, Diane waited for me outside the courthouse. Marcus was parking the car. I was alone with Maya in the stroller. "You're making a mistake," Diane said. Voice shaking. Not with emotion. With rage. "No," I said. "You made the mistake. When you tried to take my baby because I was honest about struggling. I was protecting her, you were stealing her. Using my mental health crisis as an excuse. She would have been better off with me. You were unstable. I had postpartum depression. 1 in 7 mothers experience it. And you used it to file for custody instead of offering help." Diane stepped closer. "You can't keep her from me forever. She's my granddaughter." I looked at her. This woman who'd held my 6-week-old daughter and decided she'd make a better mother. This woman who'd weaponized my vulnerability in the most devastating way possible. "Watch me," I said, and I walked away. That was 4 years ago. Maya is 6 now. Happy. Healthy. Completely unaware that her grandmother tried to legally steal her when she was 6 weeks old. She asks about Grandma Diane sometimes. I tell her that Grandma lives far away. It's not quite true. Diane lives 20 minutes from us. But she might as well be on another planet because she'll never see Maya again, not because I'm vindictive. Not because I can't forgive, but because she proved that when given the choice between supporting a struggling mother and taking her child, she chose theft, and I will never give her another opportunity. Marcus cut contact completely. Realized that his mother had manipulated him during the most vulnerable time of our lives. Our marriage survived, but only because he finally chose his wife and daughter over his mother. As for Diane? I hear she tells people that I turned her son against her and stole her granddaughter. That she was just trying to help and I overreacted. She's not wrong about one thing, I took her granddaughter. Legally. Permanently. Using the same court system she tried to use against me. If you're a new mother struggling with postpartum depression, understand this: what you're experiencing is medical. It's chemical. It's not weakness, but also understand that there are people who will weaponize your vulnerability. Who will use your honesty about struggling as ammunition to take what's yours. Document everything. Keep records. Don't assume that family means safety, because the legal system isn't designed to protect vulnerable mothers. It's designed to protect whoever tells the most convincing story. And if someone tries to use your mental health crisis to steal your child, don't react emotionally. Don't give them what they expect. Wait. Document. Plan, and when you're strong enough, show them exactly what it means to mess with a mother who refused to stay broken. If you've experienced someone weaponizing your vulnerability against you, drop survivor in the comments. If you think she went too far, drop vindictive. And subscribe, because I have 9 more stories about people who waited years to collect debts nobody thought would be paid.